Alright guys, we're going to start with the review lesson tonight for slope intercept form, just to kind of get us some good note taking here, somewhere you can reference back to if you're having any trouble remembering, which part is which. So just to kind of overview, we learned that if you set up any equation here in your y equals mx plus b format, that each one of these resembles something. So we talked about functions and what makes up a function, that for every x there is a y, for every one input there is only one output. So you're trying to figure out what are you doing to your x to get yourself to the y. That's why you're seeing all this math going on over here with your x, because something has to be done to that x to figure out how you're going to figure out what that y is. Okay, so just quick review. Your slope is your rate of change. We talked about your rate of change and how you can figure out the rate in which your line is moving, which is always your rise over your run. And then your y-intercept, that's your initial value. This is the value that you start your line off at. This is the point where it crosses your y-axis. Make sure you make that noticeable. If that's your y-axis, it's the y-intercept. Well, where does it cross? On the y-axis. So when you get your equation set up in slope-intercept form, you're going to know that the number in front of the x, it's not the actual x itself, it's what's being done to the x, the number, your coefficient there in front of the x, which is going to be your slope, which is again your rise over your run, your rate of change. And then your y-intercept, remember, is your initial value, the point in which you're going to start off with your y-axis. So let's kind of apply everything that we just got done talking about here to our situation. They've given us here this equation, y equals negative 3x plus 2. It's already set up in slope-intercept form here for us, so we don't have to do any changing. So step number 1, place your value on your y-intercept. Okay, so we know that the positive 2 is our y-intercept. So we're going to come over here and we're going to place a dot on the y-axis. Y-intercept, y-axis. Alright, from there it says, from that point, count out to find the next point. And I like this where it says this, so just remember, be careful about positive and negative directions. Positive and negative directions. Fit that in there. Alright, if it has a plus sign, you go to the upper left, upper right. And if it's got a negative, you're going down or to the left. So you got to be careful there. Alright, now what they're talking about here, from that point, count out to find the next point. This is your slope. This is your slope. Now remember, your slope is your rise over your run. You wrote your notes up here. So we're looking at a negative 3x. Okay? So remember, if your slope is a negative 3x, that is the same thing as a negative 3 over 1. This is a big deal, because if you put the negative on the denominator, that's going to change the direction in which you're moving. Okay? Now, because you're at a negative 3 from this point, that means you're going to go down 3. That's technically your rise. Okay, but we're going down because it's a negative. And then you do your run. It's a positive 1, so we're going to the right. And you'll continue on with this rate of change because it's a consistent rate of change. So if you wanted to go further, you could go down 3 more. 1, 2, 3, and then over 1. And we've got our nice consistent rate of change. Remember to, when you're connecting your dots here, to use, a straight edge, a ruler, whatever it is that you've got handy there for you, because you want a nice straight line to connect your dots there to show your consistent rate of change there. Okay, this is a line, so you need to make sure that you got your arrows on both ends, because that line is going to continue on forever, which is step 3. Is to connect the 2 points to form a line. Okay, and then you can consistently see your rate of change there. You've got your rise over your run, where you rose up and down, or to the left and to the right, which is your run. Okay. Alright, so we're going to apply all this stuff that we've been talking about to get some good examples. When you're going through your examples, what I would really love for you to do is to actually pause it. Try it yourself to see if you can do it, and then you can kind of come back to the video to check your work. That's kind of the point here, is that you're doing some learning on your own. Alright, so for the first 2 right here, we're going to be writing an equation for the actual line. All they've done is given you a line here, and they want you to write an actual equation. Okay, now as reference, remember, you're needing something to equal y equals mx plus b. That's your y-intercept form that you're always going to be referencing to, your slope-intercept form there. So remember, sometimes your easiest point might be where it's crossing your y-axis. That's always going to be your b. So you're going to look and see where it's crossing your y-axis, which is right here. That is going to be at a -1 because it's below, you went down, which means if I'm keeping this in y equals mx plus b format, then I'm going to put my -1 here at my y-intercept. Okay? And then we're going to figure out how do we get from one dot to the next. Well, notice your line has a downward motion, which means we're going to be going down 1, 2, and then we're going to be going to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right here we went down 2, and over here we went to the right 6, which means we just made the fraction -2 over a +6. This is your rise over your run. That is your rise over your run, which can be simplified to 6 can be simplified here. So it's also going to equal a -1/3. So we've just figured out our m here. We've just figured out that our m here is going to be a -1/3. This is what's being done to your x. If you want to keep the plus sign here, that's fine. You can put your -1 in parentheses if you like, if that makes you feel better and helps you understand it. So there's our final equation there. Y equals -1/3 x minus 1. And again, this is the joy of having this video at home. If you need to go through that step by step again to figure out what you're doing, that's totally fine. So we're going to the next line over here to set up our equation. This right now is a perfect time to pause your computer to see if you can set up this equation by yourself. So I really hope you're taking advantage of that. Remember, step number 1 is to look for your y-intercept. Where is it crossing your y-axis, which would be this point right here. So we go -1, -2, -3. So we're at a -3 for our y-intercept. And then you're asking yourselves, how do you get from one point to the next? So we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We went up 6. That's my rise. And then over 1 to the right, which is a +1, which means we're going to have 6 over 1 to equal 6. This is our slope. This is our rise over run. This is our rate of change. All of those words help describe that. So our slope-intercept form is going to be y equals 6x minus 3. That is the equation to format this line here, to set up this line. And this is the equation to format this line here. Okay? Alright, and moving on down, now they're giving you the equation and they want you to graph the literal line. There's no need in setting up your chart here and plugging in numbers to figure out what's going on, because now we know where our line is starting. We know it's going to start at a +4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here we are at 4. And then we know that what number comes in front of x, if it's not seen, that's going to be a 1. So we know that our rise over run will be a -1 over a +1. Because think about it, if it was a -1 and a -1, a negative and a negative make a positive. That's not a positive, that's a negative sign. Which means we're going to be going down 1 and over 1. Down 1 and over 1. And then you will connect those dots to set up your line for that equation there. But don't forget about your invisible 1 there. If there's nothing there, it's always a 1. So let's apply this over here. Check number 1. Is it in y equals mx plus b format? It is not. We've got to get that 1 over here on the other side of the equal sign to keep it in our slope-intercept form. So we've got to subtract a 1 from both sides. Subtract that 1 from both sides. So that means that we're looking at y equals 1/4 x minus 1. Now we have it in our slope-intercept form. You always have to have it in slope-intercept form. We know that our y-intercept's a -1. So we're going to apply a dot at -1. And then our rise over 1, they're both positive. That means that we're going to go up 1 and over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And because of the size of our graph, we are only going to be able to plot 2 dots. Remember straight edge here, guys, so you can make a nice straight line. And then you've got your line there that you're making for your